Hello, friends. Happy Tuesday and welcome to Carmen Live with Friends. And my friend today is Ken Phelps, Vice President and Resource Development at the Daytona Regional Chamber of Commerce. How are you, Ken?
I'm very well, Carmen. Thank you for having me on the show. I have good company that I'm trying to follow between Mr. Sigrani and Mr. McGill and Ms. Beeler. They all did a fantastic job, so I can only hope that I'm up to their standards that have bbeen established.
Oh, I'm sure you will be. I'm not worried about it. Thanks so much for joining me. I had Nancy on right in the beginning of me doing this live with friends, and I really thought, I need to get Ken on here, but I want to get him on here for the right topic. And as we are relaunching Volusia County and getting back to business safe, I thought, you know what? We need someone on the chamber. It's got to be Ken. So thank you so much, because I know it's a hard time to have some of these conversations. So I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have on it. There's probably never been a more needed community effort than what we're all experiencing right now, because there's not a person that's not impacted in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. Ken, tell everybody first what your background is, where you're from, and how you ended up at the Daytona Regional Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, so in the beginning, born and raised in Volusia County. I'm a native of DeLand, Florida, so I grew up over on the west side of the county. Really proud of my hometown. That has been, when it has changed so much since I was a kid. Our joke when we were in school was it was dead land. There was nothing going on downtown, nothing happening. And now when you go over to DeLand, it doesn't matter what night of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, weekend nights, whatever, there's people sitting out eating dinner and all kinds of stuff. So DeLand's in a really great spot right now, and really proud of the work that everybody's doing over there. Born and raised in DeLand, graduated from DeLand High School. I went to what was then Daytona Beach Community College, now Daytona State College. Finished my AA there, and then transferred to the University of Florida and finished a bachelor's degree in telecommunications. So I was going into radio and television, and did that work for off and on for about 10 years out of school. In the summer of 1998, my wife Mindy and I moved to Pennsylvania. Was in where she's from originally, in Lebanon County. It's about 20 minutes east of Hershey, for anybody that's familiar with that area. And we were up there 18 years and moved back to Volusia County in the summer of 2016. Drove back down and worked on making some connections. And it was a little surreal for the first few months, because I didn't need directions anywhere in Volusia County, but I didn't know anybody anymore. All the key players had changed. So I had to do some networking, and as part of my outreach, had made contact with chamber executives all over the area and met with several. Rick Fraser, who was previous CEO of the Ormond Beach Chamber of Commerce. I met with Deb Connors, who's the CEO at the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber. And at the time, the DeLand Chamber was led by Nick Conti, and they all, I was coming down. We were coming down over a vacation before we moved. And so I was just trying to get a feel for the job market and housing and kind of what the community's like. And they all were great and met with me. And one of the executives that I reached out to was Nancy Kiefer, our CEO here at the Daytona Regional Chamber. And what I didn't know exactly, what I didn't know at the time, we had about 3 business days that we were down because it was over spring break. And so I said, I'm coming down here the days I'm going to be in town. If you have, half an hour to 45 minutes, I'd appreciate, just getting your perspective on the community. And she emailed back and said, hey, I've got about 45 minutes on Tuesday at 9. I had a meeting canceled, and that's really the only time I've got this week. But if you can make that work, we'll do it. And what I didn't know at the time is that was the week prior to Bike Week in 2016. And having gone through that event now a few times, if I got an hour of free time back in my schedule that I didn't have to give to somebody else, I'd be keeping it. So it just speaks volumes to her and her willingness to share and help a native relocate back to Volusia County. And we met a couple of times and touched base, and then lo and behold, an opening came up here at the chamber, and I threw my hat in the ring, and the rest is history. So
that's awesome. And so we opened our business in 2017. August of 2017. And first person I met was Jamie. And then I remember our RBCs having tell me if I'm wrong. I think that's the first time we met was at the Tortugas ball game.
I think so. Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about business, and then you were like, hey, there's a small committee, that small business committee, and we're looking for some more people. Would you be interested? And I joined the committee. Thank you. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. You didn't know it was going to be a lifetime contract, though, but that's okay.
I get voluntold a lot. So,
It's
but
all
that
good.
was a good.
Hey, and we're better for it. So thank you for that.
So I really appreciated that committee. That was really, I really enjoyed that. Made me feel like made me feel like I was involved, right? And then of course, have continued to get involved since there, but we've cultivated a great friendship, and I appreciate that too. So of course, you're a fellow Gator. Go Gators.
Indeed.
Yeah. All those people I'm just looking at, I'm sure the comments will start to pop up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All the other teams fans are going to start chiming in, I'm sure.
So let's talk a little bit about what the chamber's going through. I mean, global pandemic, right? Hoping, I think, that we are at the tail end, but really kind of starting to see some things shift. And you guys are definitely taking the initiative with the Volusia Chamber Alliance on some other things. Talk to me a little bit about some of the programs that the chamber is doing specifically for COVID-19.
Yeah, my gosh. I mean, it seems like years ago that it was mid-March and this conversation was just starting to take place about this could be something we really need to deal with and what's going to happen. Well, we might have to. I can remember thinking it was going to be a few weeks of really kind of hardship, and then it was going to pass, and by summer we'd be back to normal. Right. And here we are now, finishing up the month of June, halfway through the year, and normal's not even anywhere in sight. So it really was a very quick and definitive shift for us here at the chamber. The first thing, I guess the first quote unquote cancellation that took place was when Mayor Henry pulled the permits for Bike Week for all the itinerant vendors the last weekend. So fortunately, they got most of the time that was here. Obviously, the last Saturday is always probably the busiest, and there were still a lot of people in town because realistically, what are you going to do? Go on the streets and anybody that's on a bike, you're going to tell them they have to leave. Well, what if they live here? There was no way to do it, and we took some hits for that, from a PR standpoint, but logistically, I think it was the right measured balance of moving forward. You need to take some steps to start to, get things closed down a little bit. But the logistics of canceling something of that scale, that's just not going to happen. So that was kind of the first thing. And then our business after hours for March got postponed. That was supposed to be hosted by the Daytona Tortugas, who we just saw on social media a few minutes ago that their 2020 season has been canceled, for all of minor league baseball. So, I'm fingers crossed that when 2021 rolls around, we'll get to go back to the Jack and watch some great minor league baseball. But so we really started to then, once we knew, okay, events are going to be canceled because we're not able to gather in groups. One of the things I'm so proud of about our organization was we immediately shifted our conversation. And so the Bike Week permit event happened on Saturday. I think the decision was made Friday, but it was pulled effective for the weekend. Monday morning at our staff meeting, we were having a conversation about what does our business community need? What do we as a chamber of commerce need to be able to provide for them? What are the things that we can do? And it started with a brainstorming session. And from that Monday through the next probably 8 to 10 Mondays, our normal staff meeting agenda went out the window, and it was 100% about how are we helping the business community survive this pandemic. As you well know, having a strong chamber background, 80 to 85% of our membership is small businesses. And most are less than 10 to 20 employees, and you're one. They needed to be able to navigate all of the flood of information that was going to be coming down. and we needed to be the conduit to connect them with the experts and decision makers and thought leaders who were going to help them decipher that information. So we very quickly shifted from doing in-person events where there's some networking component or educational topic to virtual platforms and connecting people from all over the country to come in. So we immediately started putting together webinars and Zoom conferences and GoToMeeting events with people who could help business owners understand the various legislative packages that were being passed, and they were being passed fast and furious. The CARES Act alone was, I think, 1,000 pages of legislation. It was written and passed in about 2 weeks and put $2 trillion of aid out on the table for businesses of varying sizes and industries and stuff. And we very quickly were able to put together programs on all the different aid packages and bring in local experts, or in the case that it wasn't somebody local who could speak to it, folks at the state and federal level who could, kind of come on board and help a small business owner like yourself who's learning. Not only do you have all your own business stuff to run, but now you've got to learn all this aid stuff that's coming out, and how do you make that work for your business? And do you make it work for your business? That was an interesting conversation with some folks. Some of the aid, they were like, it's not the risk on the backside of taking advantage of one of these loan programs is too great. And I know people who didn't apply because they didn't want to have those hoops to jump through. So we did more virtual programming in the first 4 to 6 weeks of the pandemic than probably had been done ever in the history of the chamber prior to that, which was really remarkable because it was something that had been talked about. If you recall, because you were at our board vision planning session back in November, that we talked about events and the inability of a small business owner to get away from their shop or office to go to an event to learn about a topic. And the drive time in between, it was just too much of an investment for them. So we were like, okay, how do we deliver content digitally? And it was kind of, well, we need to really look at that and start to examine it. Well, come mid-March, there wasn't any time to examine it. We had to grab something and go. And so I think I'm most proud about how we made that transition so quick and provided quality information for business owners that in some cases, I'm sure, help them survive to where we are now. And hopefully we'll help get them to the other side of it. While we have done a lot of work and there's a lot of things that we've done, there's a lot of work left. There's going to be, this is an extended kind of thing. Whereas I think we all thought, July will be back to normal. We'll get together at business after hours, have a drink, network, catch up. And here we are on the cusp of July 1, and it's not even close.
Yeah. So, and obviously I'm very fortunate to be tied to an organization like FASTSIGNS, that we were getting information. But I have to say, as we were getting information from both FASTSIGNS and from the Daytona Regional Chamber of Commerce, it was coming at the same speed, where I was like, okay, I've got a little bit of an advantage here because I'm with a franchise, but y'all were getting that information out very quickly, very, very accurately, and honestly, very well written, so that we could understand, because it was so complicated to understand some of the packages that were coming out, some of the verbiage. And I know I definitely appreciated that. I'm still having, I'm sure after 2020, there'll be like some sort of diagnosed trauma for business owners after the pandemic. But we were getting information so quickly, and we were having conversations too, which is so nice, because when you don't think about that when you think of a regional chamber of commerce. I know other regional chambers where it's very hard to get a hold of the CEO, the vice president, or anybody that you can really kind of share your perspective. But here, you guys are always available. To be the new girl in town, I always feel like, you pick up the phone, Nancy picks up the phone. If I have a question or I send an email, I always feel like I get a reply back. So I just appreciate that so much. That's to me, that's an important part of being part of this chamber, is just having access to the experts. You guys, again, there's no wonder why you guys are a 4-star accredited chamber. So.
Well,
makes sense.
Thank you for that. It really is. It's very, very much a focus of everybody in this organization to be member centric. And that's just how it works. We're a membership-based organization, and if we're not providing the information and resources that our members need, they're going to go elsewhere for that information. And one of the things that Nancy has always said is we do not have all the answers. Unequivocally, we're never going to. We don't have the resources to have all the answers, but we know we likely know people who do. So if we don't have the answer in house, we very likely have the connection that can help. And for my money, and I've been involved in chambers, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday. I've been involved in chambers from multiple sides. So when I was in Pennsylvania, I was a member of the chamber, and I was served on the board, and I served on the executive committee. So now working on the staff side, it's interesting to see the other side of the operations, but it is all about serving the members and providing those resources. And we're unequivocally a business organization, and we will look at everything through the lens of business and what's good for the business community. But I have not found an organization that so holistically has an impact on a community as a chamber of commerce. One of the things that is often said in the industry is if you've seen a chamber, you've seen a chamber, because every community is different. There's different culture, there's different industry makeup, there's different geography, you name it. But the ability to look at all things and do things for the good of the community, even if in normal times you're doing it through the lens of business, but when things hit crisis mode, we've always shifted to what's good for the community. Whether that was in the wake of hurricanes that hit, we did some community support. We went over and helped put together some beds following Hurricane Irma at a local domestic abuse shelter, because when that hit South Florida, there were shelters in South Florida that were decimated, that were displacing families who were fleeing abusive situations, and they had nowhere to go. So they were working on getting those folks transferred to other shelters up in this area. And our local shelter knew they were going to get an influx, and they said, "Well, we don't have the capacity for them to put beds. We've got beds, but they're not put together. Can we have some help in putting them together?" And we put together a group of chamber volunteers and went over and we put beds together at the shelter for a day so that we could help other people who came in. And similarly with the pandemic, you were talking about resources immediately. And in addition to doing all the webinars, programming we were doing, by Monday, we had our first staff meeting talking about what we could do. That Tuesday, our COVID-19 resource page was live on our website. And it's evolved very much from March 17th when it went live to what it is today, and has even evolved into another page since then, which we'll talk about in a minute with the Back in Business Safely page. But that was not limited to just members. We provided the information for everybody in the business community, whether you were a member or not. And we actually there was a portion of that page where businesses could share how their business had changed as a result of the pandemic. Restaurants were going to takeout or curbside service only. Retail shops were limiting or changing their hours. Other industries were changing their hours or maybe closing showrooms or facilities. They needed a place to be able to communicate that. So we put on that page resources where it doesn't matter if you're a business or a consumer or a local citizen, you could go and you could get links direct to credible, relevant information from CDC, from Volusia County, from the state of Florida, from the U.S. Chamber, from the ACCE, whoever. We were very much pushing credible, relevant information. Don't get all your information from social media because half of it's not accurate. I know that's news to you, but that's all right. But go to the store. So we had that. We had recordings of the webinars we were doing. So if people couldn't get on live to watch it, they could watch it later on their own time and convenience. And then all of these businesses would list how their business had changed or been impacted. And that's just how we do it. It's about the community. That was what was good for the community. I firmly believe that once we get on the other side of this crisis, that some of those businesses that leveraged those resources but weren't a member of the chamber at the time will see value and understanding that everything we're doing is for the good of the community. And I hope that after we get back to normal, they'll come in and support the work that we're doing by becoming a member. And I firmly believe that we'll be repaid in like support for the work we did to try and benefit everybody.
And that page, obviously, that was open to not just chamber members, but you guys are also working on an initiative with the Volusia Chamber Alliance that is also open to businesses that are not chamber members. You want to talk a little bit about the PPE distribution, when that starts, and how that was organized?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things that you and I were talking about a little bit last evening was how well the chambers of commerce throughout Volusia County cooperate with each other. And I really think that the business leaders in the community don't appreciate how that's not the case everywhere. There are chambers who they are like, they butt heads and it's like oil and water, and they stake their territory and it's cutthroat. The efforts of all of the chamber executives throughout this area, and there's been some turnover, and I think it is ingrained into the culture of this community, because even as leaders have changed, there hasn't been anybody who's come in and not cooperated and gotten along. There's been some really great efforts. Next week will be another example of that. We have a distribution project that the Volusia County Chamber Alliance is working on, which is made up of the 7 brick and mortar location chambers of commerce in the area. There's some that are digital footprint, but the alliance is made up of those that have a physical location. And we partnered with Volusia County to start to distribute PPE packages. It's not going to be the kind of thing that gets you to the end of the pandemic, but it's a start, particularly in a time when people may not have been able to find some of the supplies that they need. So starting next week, starting Monday, the 1st, and actually I have a sheet somewhere on it. On Monday, distribution will be. What's that?
So PPE is personal protection equipment, so that it's masks.
Yeah,
it's,
so masks, hand sanitizer. There will be some cleaning supplies, some paper towels, and just the kind of, it'll be essentially a starter kit. Really important for especially a small business who may not have been able to find the supplies they need. But starting next week, starting on Monday, we'll have a distribution at the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce, our distribution at the Daytona Regional Chambers on Tuesday, and then through the rest of the week, there'll be locations in New Smyrna, Ormond Beach, Deltona, and DeLand. You don't have to be a chamber member to come by and get one of these PPE packets. It's open to any business. I will clarify that it's businesses. This isn't like for individual residents to be able to come up and get, unfortunately, but this is as here again, this is the chamber model. Our efforts are always through the lens of business. So we're working with those businesses to get a packet. They're free. You're not paying anything. Basically, what you need to do is bring a business card to one of the distribution locations, and it doesn't have to be the one in your area. So if you are a member of the Ormond Beach Chamber of Commerce, and the only day that you're able to get out and do anything is you're going to be down doing business in Port Orange, and on Monday you want to go by, absolutely go by. They'll give you a PPE kit. There'll be a simple form to fill out that you'll check off kind of some of the supplies that you're getting. You sign off on it. You give a business card. We'll clip that, and because we have to track the information that we report back to the county, because they've ordered the supplies. Essentially, the county has contracted with the alliance to do the distribution. But we're going over tomorrow. Actually, we're going to be putting all the packets together at the Ocean Center. We'll have an assembly line of volunteers who are going to be putting all the supplies in bags and getting them ready. And then next week will be the first distribution. The plan, I think, for the first week is there's going to be 3,500 packets split up amongst the various chambers next week to give out. And it'll be, first come, first serve while supplies last. And each facility will be able to provide a local business with 1, maybe 2 at most kits, because we want to make sure we get them out as broadly as possible, that the people who are in need of these resources have them. But it will hopefully be a starting point for people to be able to make their businesses more safe. They'll be able to clean properly. They'll be able to provide hand sanitizer for their clientele, masks for their employees or their clients if they don't have them. If they're, the city of Daytona Beach just enacted the resolution requiring masks, indoor facilities if you're not able to social distance. So this might be a packet that people can provide for their employees or for customers if they have a limited number of customers coming in. And it just really goes to show the cooperative effort of all the chambers. It wasn't even a question of, there wasn't argument on, well, I want this and I want that. It was like, hey, what do we need to do? Let's get it put together. And it all came together in, a couple of weeks time, really. And that's the thing that I like about the work of the chamber, that sometimes you don't see in other types of organizations. It's not about taking weeks and weeks and months to get some project done. It's you identify a need, get to work and get it done, because it could be the difference between a business staying open and not. And then that has ripple effects through people providing for their families and everything else. So it's all community based.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a community-focused community, period. I mean, just from being in other places and coming here, and I think that's why I love Volusia County, is because I'm such a servant. That's my heart. And here, I mean, everybody's just so community service geared, and I appreciate that because it's my heart. But you could just see it's just ingrained in the culture here, which is that's something to be proud of for real.
Yeah. But I think you fit in so quickly because your heart and intention matches what the community does and looks for. So when they identify people who you may be new to the area, but if you also have a community, servant leadership kind of mentality, it's not going to take long for people to get in, because you can't do that. That's a thing that you're either very genuine with or you're not.
Yeah.
And people see it really quickly if it's not transparent, if it's not true in terms of how you operate. You might get away with it once or twice, but when if you start to show true colors that don't match what you've been saying and doing, it's going to become public very, very quickly.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Look, just seeing all the comments, but I can't read them all because we're having a conversation. Never mind. We'll get back to you.
I don't want to pull them up either, because I'll be looking and wanting to respond to somebody. So I'll catch them back afterwards.
Nancy does want to know, who is the best leader that you've worked for?
Nancy Kiefer, no question. No question. See how quick that answer was? I didn't even have to think about that.
Well, we've talked about her off the air, and I am definitely a Nancy Kiefer fan. I'm part of the global fan club. Is that what
Absolutely. And it sounds like there will only ever be one president of that. I think Mark Wilson, the CEO of the Florida Chamber, is a lifetime president of the global Nancy Kiefer fan club. But it's growing by leaps and bounds every day.
Well, she's an amazing leader, and you talked a little bit about what it's like working for someone like Nancy. Share a little bit about that, because I think sometimes, and she is an accessible leader. She's accessible. She will pick up the phone. She's the real deal.
Yeah, and so over the course of my career, I have had the opportunity to work for leaders, and I've had the opportunity to work for managers. And they're two different things. Mm-hmm. One of the very first people I worked for professionally, who I considered a mentor and somebody who I could learn from about how the right way to do things in business, was up in Pennsylvania. I was working at a local shopping mall up there. And ironically, before he took the job as general manager of the shopping mall up there, he was the vice president at the chamber up there. So he had that servant mentality as well. And he did things the right way all the time. And I just thought, okay, this is just how it works. Well, then a little bit later, he left, took another position somewhere. I got promoted into the GM slot. So I was dealing more directly with corporate leadership. Well, not everybody leads like Chris led. It was really challenging and eye-opening for me. And it got to a point where I have since worked for a couple of people that the environment and the culture were so toxic that I was grinding my teeth in my sleep because of the stress. I went waking up sore in the jaws from being so stressed out. So now, and Nancy would tell you this, when I interviewed with she and with Janet Kersey for the position here at the chamber, it was really after those bad work experiences that I started to understand as a job seeker that it is just as important for me to interview the organization I want to go work for as it is that they interview me to make sure I match. And so I asked them very pointedly. And so after that job, both the last job I had in Pennsylvania working for and doing some fundraising for Lebanon Valley College, and every job I've had since I had those bad work experiences, I have asked every person, what is your philosophy on work life, personal life balance. Because at the end of the day, we're all living a life, and it's not just about what you do professionally. And the eye-opening for me was when I worked in those toxic situations. I had people who were tell me that they were all about family first. They're good leaders, family first. And then I had a project go bad and was told on the phone within hours of receiving an email saying that they're a family first organization, that my job is to work until the job gets completed, and it's up to me to balance my personal life. And so that position changed. They did some reorganization. They said you can reapply for your own job, or you can take severance package. And knowing that the writing on the wall was not going to change, this was the culture they were going with, I took the severance package, and I told them, the most important job I have is husband and father. My son was 9 at the time when I was going through all this. And I said, I'm not going to have my son, who is 9 at the time, graduate high school and wonder who I am because I wasn't there, because I was so ingrained in professional setting.
Yeah.
And so that is my most important job. And working at this company is not even a close second. You're second, but you're way, way down the line. And so now the opportunity to work for a strong leader like Nancy and Janet and some of the other folks we have the leadership we've had on our board, when you can see people who do things the right way. Somebody shared a quote I saw on Facebook today about somebody who is appreciated will do way more than somebody who's told. And that's the philosophy. I think when you look across the board at everybody on our staff, they'll go the extra mile for a member because they know that it's appreciated. It's appreciated internally by our leadership here at the chamber, and it's appreciated by those members who they help, and it's appreciated by members who they're not even helping. It might just be a friend. You hear a story about somebody you're close with who you knew because they're part of the chamber. And when you hear chamber staff did something good for them, you appreciate it because you know that someday you may not be also in that position, even if you're not in it right now. And so that's where we've got the flexibility. Nancy lets us take initiative. We'll work on projects. We'll come to her with ideas, and if as long as it supports the mission of the chamber, doesn't overly tax resources that are not currently budgeted. If there's a way or a way to find the resources that will allow for it that weren't in the budget, that's always an option as well. It's all about, if it's good for the members, let's figure out how to do it. And to me, that's what makes our organization so strong.
Yeah, and there's a lot of leaders that aren't like that. If the idea doesn't come from them, if it's not specifically for their gain, they don't want to hear it. They just don't want to. So that's awesome. I already think she's awesome, but
yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. There's no pride of ownership, and I will tell you, she has a lot of experience in the industry, and she has a lot of ideas. But she doesn't have to be. In fact, she would tell you she'd prefer to not be the one to have all the ideas, because she's the kind of person, she's thinking about stuff all the time. She appreciates when somebody else comes to the table with something, with an idea that's for the good of the organization, because that while somebody might think, well, if they have all the ideas, that shows what a strong leader they are. The reality is a good leader is developing people without fear of losing their own position. And so if somebody who is part of the team underneath her comes up with an idea, the smart member will look at that and think even more of that person as a leader, whether it's Nancy or any other leader of an organization, because they have developed people so well that they're contributing ideas and they're not worried about somebody coming to try and take their job or what have you. That's the thing. Good leaders leaders develop other good leaders.
Yeah, and the organization is all like that. It's everybody on it is just so. I know you guys have had some changes even since I've been here, but everybody that comes on is just, they're all great. I get along with everyone. So anyways, so talking about the chamber, because obviously I've been a part of other chambers, and I noticed you guys don't have a political action committee per se, but you guys do have Jim Cameron that's on board, and is he the longest serving lobbyist for chamber? He lobbies for chambers. What is his role?
He works for the Daytona Regional Chamber. He's our senior vice president of government affairs.
Mm-hmm.
He is the longest tenured employee here at the chamber. And I think he's in year 37.
Mm-hmm.
I think something like that. So we often joke and kid and tell him that he just happened to be standing here when they started building the chamber, and then he just got a job and he never left. So, but no, he's been doing it for such a long time, and he's got great, strong relationships. So while we don't formally have a political action committee, advocacy is without a doubt one of the cornerstones of the work that we do. And that's really the message is the chamber allows business owners to do collectively what they don't have time to do individually.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the time to pick up the phone to call a legislator every time there's an issue that needs to be addressed. But when the chamber can pick up the phone and say, on behalf of nearly 1,000 members, here's what the business community is telling us with regard to this piece of legislation or this crisis or this aid package or whatever it might be, that carries a lot of weight, because not only is it all those businesses, it's all those employees who also are voters. And so our elected officials know when they're talking to the chamber, one, they know they're able to reach the community, the business community quickly in terms of communication, but they also know that they'll hear from us quickly if there's an issue that needs to be addressed. So it's a key part of what we do.
And what's so nice about it is that he is an advocate, but the chamber, the regional chamber, at least, I don't know enough about the smaller chambers. I only belong to one other small chamber. It's not super political. It's not very divisive. It doesn't shove its opinion down your throat. I mean, it's very, definitely very informative. And I really appreciate that, just because where I was before was a little bit more political, and it just, it was a little messy during the times. And when we think about everything that we're going right now, going through as a country right now, it's just, I don't know, it feels good to be a part of an organization. They're going to advocate on your behalf, but they're really not taking a stand on anything that isn't business related, that isn't mission critical. So, I mean, other than, do good business, be kind. I mean, I know we're constantly talking about that. And you and I have talked about that, and, even, PPE and all that stuff. And we're only going to get into this conversation. Ken told me it was okay. We talked about masks and, people talking about, hey, we're not going to patron businesses if we have to wear a mask. We're not going to do this and we're not going to do that. And it's nice that the chamber has just kind of said, hey, this is what the best business practices are. These are the rules laid out by the county or the state. And this is what they've said are good business practices. And we're going to support that.
Yeah. And
that's what we encourage people to do. So I know, especially with giving out PPP and stuff like that, that's also, saying, hey, this is the best practice. So I know we put out a statement today letting our customers know and our clients know that, in order to walk into my business, we are requiring masks. And for the sake of my customers, for the sake of my staff that has given me, 3 very good years while we've been in business here. And I want to make sure that they're safe. And I want to make sure that if somebody comes in and goes home to grandma or to somebody that's immune compromised, that they didn't contact someone at my center that is COVID-19 positive or could cause an issue, right? So are you guys hearing more of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think here's the challenge with taking stances politically, and whether it's related to the pandemic or something else. I think as a community, we represent the business community, and there's the trend of I think back to, I guess, when my parents were in business, they owned a Hunter's restaurant in DeLand when I was a kid for about 10 years, and I think at that time, so you're talking mid-80s to mid 90s. And there was a pretty clear delineation that the business support came by and large from the Republican Party and less so from the Democratic side of the aisle. Although there's always crossover. And that's one of the things that has always I've struggled with in political conversations, is this need to be very binary in the decision making. You are one or the other. And if you're on that side of the aisle for one thing, you must be on that side of the aisle for everything in your existence. And it ignores the reality of people. We're all complex human beings. We're all the sum of our total past experiences. And all of those things lead you to different perspectives on different issues, depending on what your experience is in that kind of issue. And there's a very interesting piece. So one of the things, and again, a benefit of being a member of the chamber is you get info and resources that is probably not readily available. But our partnership with the U.S. Chamber, there was an effort done, or I'm sorry, it wasn't the U.S. Chamber. This effort that I'm going to refer to is through the ACCE, called the Horizons Initiative, and it was started about, I want to say 7 to 8 years ago, because we talked about it when I was on the board at the Lebanon Valley Chamber of Commerce, and we watched the different videos that they put together. This is back when Mick Fleming was the president of the ACCE, and he has since retired. But there was a trend over the next 10 to 15 years that the political alignment of businesses across the country, those lines are very blurred. And so the Horizons Initiative, in one of the videos where they're talking about this, they said that where before you, and still we do to an extent, you've got two camps, red or blue, liberal, conservative, however you want to label those things. He said from a business standpoint now, there's really about 6 different pieces or groups that people could fall into. And it's much more difficult as a chamber of commerce, as an elected official, to look at somebody and think exactly how they're going to land on an issue just because they're a business owner or they're a leader in a business. And so you think, well, I know how that person's going to think. That's not accurate anymore. It's just not. People have personal experiences they're bringing to the table and professional experiences. So it's really it's interesting. And I think one of the things that we'll find if we get an issue, we put out a survey and we get feedback on an issue and it splits pretty close to 50-50, you're not likely to see us take a position on it because we represent all of our membership. And so if half of the membership disagrees with an issue, how could we possibly go out? I mean, even as a person, if half the people you are affiliated with disagreed on an issue, how can you go out and stick your flag in the ground? I don't care. This is it. This is how it's going to be. You're going to lose relationships. And the same thing in the business, that applies to the business world as well. So it's been a frustration of me for the last 20 to 25 years in politics that it's politics is team sports. That's what I've called it. It's more about being a fan and your side winning than what's best. And I gets into a whole other conversation, but it's very frustrating. I don't think people. I said a couple of weeks ago, I think in the United States, if the 2021 Olympics in Tokyo has an intellectual gymnastics competition, the U.S. is winning hands down, not even close. We take the gold.
It's just crazy because right now we're going through so much. I mean, we had that. Gosh, all my words are gone today. Can you tell? I'm not usually this flustered.
That's the hazard of doing this at night after work, right?
It was a long day. But we had a meeting. Our board meeting was tied to a community meeting, and we had some other people on board. And it was the Florida Chamber of Commerce, and we were just talking about all the things that Florida really is facing, right? And and how important it is really for us. And as we were listening to that, I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, gosh, I just feel like we're just in such a sensitive place to be going through all of this stuff as business professionals, as community leaders. So, I mean, for me, I'm excited that we are part of an organization that gives us the information that we need to know. Honestly, I'm so focused on COVID-19 that I wasn't even thinking hurricane season is around the corner. I wasn't, as much political talk as there is going on, and I work on political stuff all the time, campaigns and stuff. I can't believe that we've got an August 18th election, right around the corner. We've got a global recession that's tied to COVID-19, but long overdue, very, very long overdue. And then, in the midst of that, we've got a focus on equality and opportunities in our country that honestly, as far as social justice goes, in a way, it feels like we shouldn't even be having these conversations. You and I have talked about this before, and just from a leadership perspective and how we should be handling ourselves. And mainly I want to talk about this because from a business perspective, because I feel like so many people now with the, quick access to social media, we are just putting ourselves, in a position to really kind of lose all the rapport that we've been building with our customers, with even our staff and with our employers by some of the things that people are posting. And you can take it from there.
You're out of words again.
I'm out of words again.
Yeah. No, I mean, it really, here's the thing with social media. It's so easy. Sharing information happens in milliseconds. I agree with that. Click, share, and it's out there. And I think we're, by and large, not taking the time to assess what's the purpose of the information you're sharing. Is the information accurate? Are there other perspectives that might be at play for people depending on their experiences? A friend of mine once said that social media lacks the gut check of face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
The things that I see people type in comments and on posts on social media, if you had to stand in the town square and say those things to somebody's face, I know there's some people who will say whatever they type, and I know they're out there. But I think for the most part, people would hesitate. And if you hesitate to say it in person, I don't know that you should be putting it out on social media.
Yeah.
To me, I think taking a deep breath and a pause before you put stuff out there is not a bad philosophy to operate when you're talking about social media. And
when I interviewed Daniela, she said, and she just posted it again, if you wouldn't say it to a customer coming through the door, don't post it on social media, right? And
as a business owner, why would you potentially alienate half of your clientele?
mm-hmm.
Why would you do that? I dare anybody to find a business success book that says, go ahead and cut your client base by 50%. That's a good business model. I dare you to find somebody that puts that philosophy out there and is long-term successful in business, because I bet you can't find one.
Right, especially when we're talking about, put the politics stuff aside. We're talking about humanity. We're talking about race. We're talking about things that honestly, I never really thought that we were talking about it to this extent. I think I was telling you or somebody yesterday, but possibly you, that this is like the first time in my life that I've ever felt like, oh wow, she's brown. I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm Latin. My dad fought for this country. I'm American. I was born in Germany on American soil. I'm an army brat. I have a flag in front of my house. Like, I'm super American. And then people are like, oh, she's brown. So I like, for me, it's like very divided. People will either talk about me like I blend in, which is off-putting, or people will talk about me like I'm brown, which is off-putting. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just Carmen. Go figure. You know what I mean? It's like,
and meanwhile, you're taking all those people in the middle who just accept you for being Carmen, and that's who you should be associating with. That's
sometimes we don't have a choice. I would never, I have customers that walk in and say some things that I'm just like,
yeah.
I'm like, like, you don't know who's working for me in the back. You don't know like who walks in behind you. And I'm shocked. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. I think the different, to me, at least, my personal thoughts on the current social climate, it feels different to me than past instances. I think there are conversations being had. There's more of a willingness to really explore and examine systems and beliefs, and how did we arrive at this point, and what's the history behind it. It feels different to me, and so I'm hopeful that we're starting to make some progress. I'm not so naive to think it's going to be done next week or next month or next year. But I really, I've had a lot of conversations with my son around this whole thing, and he's in an interesting point in life to be going through an experience like this because he's 16. He's very, very knowledgeable on current events, very knowledgeable on political systems. He's done a lot of research. He's done a lot of reading, and he's looked at things from different viewpoints. And I've even seen him evolve over the last couple of years in terms of things he says and how he takes in information and what he does with it. But I've had this conversation with him, and he's feels a sense of frustration because he's at an age where he's old enough and mature enough to understand what's going on and to understand that there are people who are experiencing things that no human being should for reasons they have no control over. But he's not old enough to vote. He's not old enough to be making a living where he can make a statement with where he does business and to say, I'm not going to do business here because I don't agree with how they treat or portray people. So he's got all of this desire to want to have a positive impact and really is limited on the avenues through which he can do that. And so it's been interesting, but at the same time, his frustration gives me hope because my sense is his generation may be the one to truly turn the corner and start to get past it. And because I hear how he talks with his friends and I hear how they are actually engaging in political conversations and observations amongst themselves in ways that I don't think our generation has done. There's been that period of like, well, you don't talk religion and politics. Yeah. They're talking about it. And they're talking about it mostly in constructive ways. But I've had to talk to him in a couple of conversations he's had lately where he's like, Dad, I couldn't believe they were saying these things. And I said, I agreed. You'll learn. You're going to come across a time where there's a time when you just have to realize nothing you can say or do is going to change a person's perspective. But on the situations where you can have constructive dialogue with somebody, you're both going to grow from that situation. And he's starting to really see those differences in interactions. And he can tell the people who they may have a differing opinion than him, but they're both respectful in how they deliver it and they consider each other's sides. And that's, I think, maybe more than anything is what gives me the hope for that next generation. I think something that lacks among our peers and our age range, that we don't have the ability to be empathetic, to be observant of other opinions, and understand where people are coming from and what their experiences are that led them to that point.
Right. And like you said, hadn't thought about that, but we definitely were not encouraged to talk about religion or politics, right? Those are just things you don't talk about. So now as adults, we're obviously seeing the disconnect of having a constructive, respectful conversation about really important issues. Even, and it's gone way further. I think even the political thing, I mean, people will have conversations about stuff that's pretty menial and get super heated. And of course, social media, again, we're here, it's easy to do it here, but we really need to, I have hope when you say that. Obviously I don't have children, but when you say that about them having those conversations, that gives me hope that they're going to change something, that it's going to be okay to have conversations about things that matter and respect each other for the different places that we are in our life. Because we all need to, I don't think that we're all going to line up to every issue the same all the time, whether it's lifestyle, whether it's political, whatever, So that gives me hope. And I was actually with one of our friends' daughters at the beach, and I asked her if she wanted something, and she was like, "Oh, it's whatever you want." And I was like, "No. There's like all this option. What do you like?" And she was like, you could just tell. She was like, "Oh, whatever you like." And I was like, "No, I said, get up, come over here, see what's in front of you, and tell me what you want. Your generation has voice. We didn't have a voice. Come over here and tell me what you would like. I want you to tell me what you would like, because I wanted to encourage her. I want to say she's like 13 years old. Her mom is beautiful. She's beautiful. Their hearts are just amazing. And you know her as well. And I just wanted to encourage her to use her voice. And that's really what you're saying to Clay is, hey, use your voice, talk about these things, talk about it, productively with kindness. I think that's, empathy, compassion, and kindness, and we would get so much further. And I hope that the leadership in our community, business leaders, can start to do that too. That's why I bring it up, because I want people to hear it all the time. Let's constantly talk about how we should be talking about our beliefs and about our opinions, so that we can move forward together. This election cycle will be over. This pandemic will be over. Hopefully our businesses are growing, and we're growing our community together, and we need to be side by side. We still play and live here. So thanks for sharing that about Clay.
Absolutely.
Is he,
Yeah. And I tell you
is
what,
he excited to
as business leaders, as community leaders, I think we're having a lag in the microphone. So here let me make what I was going to say real quick. So as business leaders, as community leaders, as policymakers, it's to our detriment if we disregard the next generation that's coming, because he can't vote right now, but in less than 2 years he will. And if we want them to be part of our efforts going forward, we need to consider their voice, because if we don't, they're gonna very soon be in a position to vote, both at the ballot box and at the cash register. And it's a change. The demographics within our state and within our country are changing, and they're changing probably more quickly than a lot of people would like.
Yeah, and for as much as people talk about millennials, because I've heard it so much, and we did we had a conversation for, oh my gosh, we had an event talking about generational hiring and all of that. Geez, it is me today. I don't know what it is, Ken.
No, well, I think we had that last year, and that feels like 8 years ago now. So
I know that was just last year, but really, millennials are purposeful. They need purpose. So where, we are so focused on the goal, for them, it's more than that. It needs to fulfill a purpose, right? And it's different than us. So we need to understand the difference. But really, there are things about that generation that I think will better our society. I mean, we're seeing it every single day. I have a millennial that works for me, and she's probably one of my best employees. I mean, she's a rock star, and everybody said, don't hire a millennial. And but what I do notice about her is that she's purposeful. Everything that she does with purpose. There's definitely something tied to it. Now, we're the organization for her, because one of our goals is to be an impactful community partner. So that works, right? So as we start to grow our businesses and in the next 5 or 10 years, we really need to think about, like, how do we continue to grow, hit those goals, and still be the people that we are today, business people that we are today, while also incorporating goals that are purposeful for them.
Yeah.
Or we'll miss the mark.
Yeah, and we really, as a society, I think, need to think about how are we going to incorporate them into business, and how are they going to incorporate themselves? There's a whole other conversation to be had on the role of education, and how we should be preparing, and what the purpose of education is in the United States. The idea that we can be training them for career fields, there's some ability to do that, because there's some jobs that are never going to go away that we will continually need. And you might be able to get some of those jobs with a high school diploma, and others might require a PhD. And there's a whole spectrum in between of post-secondary education requirements, depending on the field you're looking at. But there are jobs that are going to exist in 5 years that we haven't even thought about. And this is a perfect example. 15 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation on a computer where I can see you, you can see me. It's on social media. Our friends can chime in. That didn't exist 15 years ago. And so what started out, think about YouTube. That came out in like 2006, 2009, something, late 2000s, something like that. It was like, oh, there's this new website. It's got all these great cat videos. And now it is a viable marketing platform for Fortune 100 categories. That's mind-blowing. Mark Zuckerberg, Sergey Brin, Google, the whole thing, like, if they had listened to guidance counselors in the early 90s when they were going through high school, oh, no, you need to get a job, be an accountant, be a dentist, be a lawyer, be a doctor, whatever. Think about, eventually somebody would have invented this technology. I think the pace of progress is going to happen, and there are just people who are sometimes fortuitous that they have the idea and they develop it. But think about that. There's a whole generation of jobs now for coding and website and marketing that did not exist 10 to 15 years ago. So to say we're going to be able to prepare people for careers in the next 10 to 20 years, some of them, yeah. How are we going to prepare people for jobs that we don't know what they're going to be in 10 years? It's a fool's errand, in my opinion. So we need to teach them how to think critically, not what to think, because that's when you're going to foster innovation in our society, in business, in life, you name it.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Give me some information, like give me the chamber website, the back to the business website, phone number, and where you guys are located.
Okay, so our offices are at 126 East Orange Avenue. And yes, there is a difference between East Orange Avenue and West Orange, and just Orange Avenue. So we are basically cat-a-corner across from Jackie Robinson Memorial Ballpark, directly across the street from the courthouse. So it's 126 East Orange Avenue. Our website is DaytonaChamber.com. Incredible amount of resources there, even in the best of times, about the community, about resources, about information and things to do and places to see and all that kind of stuff. Great resources for businesses and great resources for consumers. Here's something I think a lot of people realize that you can do if you logically and strategically utilize and seek out a chamber of commerce. When you go through the member directory online at the Daytona Regional Chamber, at any chamber, you're going to find businesses who have said with their dollars they're invested in the community. They want to make it a great place. So when you support those businesses, we've got corporations that are based elsewhere that do business in here that are part of our members, but the significant portion of our membership are local businesses.
Yeah.
When you're talking about economic recovery, that's the best way to do it. Because if you take your money and buy something from a corporation that's based elsewhere, you benefited from the economic leverage earning those dollars gave you. But at that point, when you send that money out of the area, it ceases to have a positive impact on your community. When you do business locally and you seek members out through the chamber website, you support that business. They've then got that money that they're going to leverage. And when they send it back out to another local business, it's all staying in the community. And it starts to cycle positively in a community. And the reality is, and this is something I saw very early in the pandemic, which I was so heartened to see, when people were sharing the post that said, the locally owned businesses, the ones that have been supporting your youth sports team and your community fundraiser and your Rotary Club and whatever else might be the case, they're the ones that need your support now. They have been there every time you've asked them, and now they're the ones asking this time, and you need to be there for them. And so that's what really being involved in a chamber, even as a consumer, when you go to pick, you need something done, or you need a service, or you need a product. If you can find them on a Chamber of Commerce website, membership directory, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be there after you need them as well. And that's the thing. You see that pop up all the time, particularly in the wake of hurricanes. All these people coming from out of the area. Oh, yeah, handyman, roof repair, whatever. If they weren't here before the storm, they're not going to be here after the storm either. And when you have an issue with the work or they take your money and run, you're just going to be out. When you do business with a local reputable company, they're going to be there for you. So I encourage people, go to the chamber websites, DaytonaChamber.com. resources in the best of times, resources in difficult times. So right now we've got there's a yellow bar across the top of our homepage that says Back in Business Safely campaign. Learn more. You click there, it goes to a page that provides resources for businesses. There's flyers and signs that you can download that if you're abiding by social distancing in your business, there's a flyer you can print out. If you don't have a graphic design person in your business that can do a flyer for you, you can download ours, print it, post it up on your door, and people know to abide by social distancing when they're in your business. If you want to put on a checklist of all the things you're doing to sanitize and clean your business so that your customers feel safe, there's a checklist you can put on and say, here's the things we're doing. You can modify them all. You can post them. There's no ownership. It's got our Back in Business Safely logo. It's a joint effort between the Daytona Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Daytona Beach Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, because both our organizations have stakes in the community getting better and doing well. There's resources on if you're in those industries and you need to know, gosh, what do I do to clean my business to get ready to reopen? If you don't have there's some industry specific guidelines that we've shared on that website. And if you're just an individual or a business that's in need of PPE, there's a list of businesses down on that page that will have a list that says you're one of them at FASTSIGNS. It'll say, here are the products that we have that are considered personal protective equipment that we can have available. And each one has an email, and you can reach out to those businesses to say, hey, I need shields to protect my receptionist, or I need masks, or I need cleaning supplies. And we've got those member businesses listed there that you can reach out to, again, to try and support local businesses, keep the local economy growing. That's going to be the biggest part of driving economic recovery, is supporting your own local economy, because then the ripple effect can go out from there. If you're sending it elsewhere, it's going to be a detriment locally, because you're not having those dollars continuing to cycle through local hands.
No, absolutely. And the chamber offices are open, right? So if somebody needed something, they can. But of course, maintaining social distancing. Next Tuesday, if you're a business, the Daytona Regional Chamber of Commerce will be hosting the PPE distribution site. That information is on the website as well. We encourage all small businesses to open their businesses safely. This is just one way to help you do so. But as a local business owner, and as a board member, I encourage our community to do so, so that we can get back to business as usual, as quick as possible. We're event driven, we're entertainment driven. So if we shut down again, our economy shuts down again. So we need to do everything that we can to impact our community in a positive way. And to me, that is just doing what is right. And to me, that is opening back safely. So I appreciate that initiative that you guys are putting together. It gives us the platform to be able to say, hey, we support that. And hopefully our colleagues will jump on board as well. So
so that website also has logos that businesses can share on their social media to let your customers know, hey, we're looking to get back in business, but we're looking to do it as safely as we can, because we want to protect our staff, our clientele, our vendors, you name it. So I encourage people to go to the website. There's large and small versions. So if you've got a web page you're trying to share it on, you don't have a lot of bandwidth, there's a smaller version. If you've got you want to print it out, put it up somewhere, there's larger resolution, higher resolution versions of it. So share that. We've got some video campaigns going on. You've been kind enough to do one that is part of the campaign. You're trying to open your business and provide livelihoods for your staff, and you want to do it safely and protect them and protect your clients. And it's social media, for all of its downside, sometimes there's great potential in positivity to be able to share a good message and the good work that's being done by our fellow community members. It's such a great avenue because it's accessible to everyone.
Yeah, we need to do more of that. We definitely should. I need to talk to some of my friends and ask them to do those videos too, just so that people know that they're open for business and what they're doing and what have you. So I promise I'll make some phone calls.
I was not trying to pressure you at all. No pressure.
No. I think we should all be doing. We should be saying, hey, you know what? we're doing what is right, and this is what we're doing, and we encourage our other local businesses to do. I mean, look, we've talked about this again. Business liability is the next thing, right? So protect your baby. The business is the baby.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic, we all talked about, save the baby, save the baby. Hey, there is a very real reality that there are business liabilities that are going to be attached to COVID-19. Smart business owners will protect their business before anything else.
Yep.
That's just their.
Yeah. Agreed.
So.
Agreed. And
Awesome, Ken.
in our role as a Chamber of Commerce, we will have a program coming up. You'll hear about that. It'll be in August on business regulation and liabilities in a COVID-19 environment, and we're going to have some experts, local and state level, who will talk about that, because that's the next step. That's what's around the corner. So.
Ken, we do not have a face-to-face meeting as of yet. And now with the mandates and stuff, I am assuming that's not coming anytime soon, correct?
Correct. We had hoped to be able to get back to at least a hybrid in-person version of Business After Hours or some other event in July. And I think the reality is, the way the numbers are going over the last couple of weeks, we're starting to see some increase, and you can debate about what the causes for those are. But I think, in the interest of doing business safely, then, that's not something we can go to quite at this point yet. Hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later, because if nothing else, I've confirmed that I am a people person, and this is a great industry for me to be in, for the reasons of being able to see people at events and stuff. But at the same time, I have family members who have, immune compromised systems, and I can't take the risk personally of taking something that I pick up at an event and having it make its way back to those family members. So, it's just, I think it's part of doing the right thing. It's part of, we've shifted how we do it. So we're going to, on July 21st, which I believe is the third Tuesday of this month, we're going to have a Let's Connect networking session via Zoom. If you haven't participated in one of those, they're very cool. We take the breakout rooms in the Zoom platform. So we take everybody that joins us that day, and we split you out into rooms with 3 to 4 other people. You get to know them. You get to talk about them, or talk with them, I guess, not talk about them. That won't build business relationships very well. But they're 10 to 15-minute sessions. And then you come back into the main room, and then we shuffle everybody randomly into different rooms and send you back out to the breakout room. So I actually had one of our members and one of your fellow interviewees from a couple of weeks ago, Johnny McGill, who said that, he participated in one. It was interesting because it forced him into conversations he might not have engaged with in an in-person setting, because you go to these events and you see people that and it's good to say, hey, how's it going? What's happening with you? And it's too easy. You have those conversations. By the time you blink, the event's over. And this forced him into rooms with people he didn't know. And so he had to say, learn about their business, get to know them personally. And it really enhanced his contacts in the community. So it was kind of cool to hear that feedback. But I hope people will join us for those. They're really great fun. I enjoy hosting them. And you can find out more information about it on our events page at DaytonaChamber.com. So that's the next one coming up, July 21st, 4:00. You can do it right from your home or office. You don't have to come out. You don't even have to wear a mask.
I'm going to wear a mask now.
You should. That would be fun.
I already said how much I dislike wearing masks, because I'm a smiler, and I feel like, smile can just change anybody's day. And I'm like, and I have this mask, and I'm like, and I'm very expressive with my eyes, but I hope that people can tell that I'm smiling and laughing.
Clay did that a couple of weeks ago. We were out somewhere, and he had his mask on, and he looked at a lady and smiled at her, and he said, she didn't even react. And he's like, and then I realized she couldn't see me smiling because he had the mask on. So it's like, oh yeah, she couldn't see me smiling at her. So it was too funny.
I smile, and I have this really annoying giggle that goes along with the smile. So hopefully people will catch up, like they'll catch it as I'm walking by, or they'll think this lady's insane.
No, it's all good. People can always tell when you're smiling.
I hope so. I hope so. Well, Ken, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you very soon. And hey, if we have more chamber stuff to talk about, I'll have you guys back on. I really appreciate you guys getting information out. It's important, and I really do hope that through all these videos, I've tried really hard to, talk to fellow chamber members and have them talk a little bit about their experience at the chamber. And I hope that when this is all said and done, that it does come back to us, and that our chamber family grows and becomes stronger, because the stronger I think our chamber family is, the stronger we are as a community. So.
Yep, I would agree. Thanks for having me on. I was flattered to have been asked and glad to be able to talk about the things that I'm passionate about, both professionally and personally, because that to me, that's the whole thing. We're people and we all have these experiences, and it's not just one thing. So I like being able to talk about my hometown and the things that I enjoy and my family and my professional life. So I appreciate it. Good job. Well done on putting this together.
Yeah, we're trying. We're trying. If I can get all my words right, we're good. Say hello to Mindy and Clay for me, and I'll see you guys soon.
Will do. Thanks,
Bye.
Carmen.